Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. So we are in the middle of a couple of the busiest Yu-Gi-Oh weeks that we've had in quite a while. We have Justice Hunters coming out in just a couple of weeks, and there's been a lot of discussion online about the cards that will or will not be reprinted in that set. Either way, Justice Hunters looks to be one of the most game-changing sets that we've had in a while, being a deck building set that's introducing 3 very meta-relevant archetypes into the game. Beyond that, we should have a TCG ban list coming in a couple of weeks, probably just after the European WCQ, since it really does feel like it's the end of the whole Ryziel and Malice format. And then beyond that, we are getting new cards revealed every day for Doom of Dimensions, the next core set coming out in just a few months, and it's bringing with it a bunch of support for both older archetypes, as well as new ones that are being revealed every few days. All of these things are causing a ton of buyouts and price spikes, and we're going to aim to cover as many of them as we can this week. Let's get started. Kicking things off, let's take a look at number C104, Umbral Horror Masquerade. So this card is a tech card that's being looked at as an extra deck option for the Vanquished Soul Canine deck. It requires several extra deck spots to make, but basically you can use 2 level 5s to go into Nash Knight, then bring out a C104 with regular 104 underneath it. Now this is pretty cool because C104 is actually a really powerful monster. It pops back row on summon, and it negates the activated effect of a monster on your opponent's side of the field, then burns them for half of their life points, and rips a random card out of their hand. So yeah, super powerful effect if you are able to bring it out, though of course this card could get hit by something like Imperm or Droplet, and it does require a lot of space in the extra deck to actually go into. Now that aside, there's been a lot of talk over the last day or so about the cards that are being reprinted in Justice Hunters itself, and from what people are saying, people believe that C104 is not going to be in there. This is something that's been speculated about over the last few weeks, as the card's price has actually been steadily climbing over time. Remember, this card was only ever available back in Judgment of the Light. The super rares have gone from $30 a couple of weeks ago to now sitting between $55 and $60, while the alties have gone from being around $60 to $65 to now being up between $100 and $130 per copy. With this one, it was always a gamble. Personally, I sold mine at the NAWCQ to one of the vendors. I think I moved them at like 60% or something like that, because I did not want to be caught holding on to these just in case they did get reprinted. So while I could have made more off of these, I think you also have to keep in mind what could have happened if it did get reprinted and you were still holding on to them. It would feel pretty bad. The other thing to note is that C104 isn't even like 100% necessary to include in the extra deck. Even after the banning of Paradise Smasher in the OCG, there are plenty of successful Vanquished Soul Canine lists that aren't including C104 in the extra deck at all. So even if you are holding on to it now, like, good for you, but it might be something to consider moving if you don't have the extra deck space for it, or you want to consider other options. Up next, let's talk about Mulch Army Purulia. So Purulia was originally considered to be the middle Mulch Army. Players didn't think it would be as good as Fualos, but it was much better than something like Meowls. Of course, it's pretty strong against Ryziel, but even last format, right, Fualos was just so much more splashable and so much more useful against all the other decks that everyone preferred to main deck Fualos. However, Purulia has gotten a ton of attention recently. Going into next format, I think it's definitely the best of the Mulch Army monsters. In particular, this card is really strong against Vanquished Soul Canine, which looks to be the best deck of the format, since you can get multiple draws as they primarily summon from the hand. The really cool thing is that even if you draw Purulia as your 6th card, or you open it when you're going first, you can just drop this card at the start of your own turn before you do your combo. So with this, you get to draw if they attempt to drop Holy Sue or Jiaolong on turn 0, or you can draw every time they tag out their Vanquished Soul monsters, which is really strong. Now, Purulia actually received a slightly early reprint back in Maze of the Master as an ultra rare, and back then everyone basically thought that from there on out the card was going to be cheap. In fact, you could grab the ultras for around $30, and the secrets had fallen to about $40. However, recently we've seen all the copies of Purulia shooting way back up in value. The original secret rares are back to where they were when Purulia first dropped, coming in at $70 to $75, and then even the ultras are now up to $65 to $70 a piece. Definitely a cool one, though we have to be a bit wary because theoretically we could see the Mulch Armies get another reprint in the tins for this year, or it could be the case that Konami decides to give us another set that has the same format and rarity distribution as Rarity Collection, and we could see Perulia and Meowls in there so that they get all of the different rarities as well. However, if you are planning on playing competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! In the Justice Hunters format, this is 100% a card that you need to own a playset of. I do want to take a second to remind all of you to check out our website, MST.merch.com. Now, over at MST.merch.com, we have everything that you will need to optimize your Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament experience. We have the basics with white, black, pink, and our new purple matted sleeves, which are my personal favorites, as well as smooth and matted sleeves to double sleeve your valuable cards and sleeves with for tournament play. But we also have some other items that you can really use to customize your collection. We have amazing foil sleeves, including some with the MST.TV logo, and dividers and subdividers so that you can keep your collection perfectly organized and easily accessible. Regardless of if you're a competitive or casual player, I'm certain that you'll find something that you will enjoy over at MSTmerch.com. Moving on, the next card we have is Chain Disappearance. So this is a pretty old normal trap card that came out back in Invasion of Chaos, and it's something that has seen a small amount of side deck play throughout the years. So when a monster with 1,000 or less attack points is summoned, you flip this, you banish the thing that was summoned, and then banish all copies of that card with the same name from your opponent's hand and deck. Now, in theory, this card just seems okay because you can cut off one really important monster from your opponent. However, this card is actually being talked about as a side deck tech against the Yummy strategy because of the way it interacts with Obedience Schooled. So basically, if your opponent uses Obedience Schooled to summon out 3 different Yummy main deck monsters, you flip this, you banish all 3 of them, and then you also get rid of the other 6 copies from their hand and deck. So basically this means that you win the game since they won't really be able to have access to any monsters at all. The other thing is that this is a normal trap card, so it can be easily searched with triple tactics thrust, which is also looking like it's going to be a really powerful tech option as well. Now with that, we are seeing the higher end copies of Chain Disappearance disappearing from the market. The card's highest rarity is the Turbo Pack Super Rare printing. Those are going to cost you about $25 each, and there's very few quantities available at the moment. Aside from that, it did get a secret rare printing in the Kaiba collection as well. Those are going to cost you anywhere from $6 to $8. The card has a few other printings that are all pretty low rarity. There's a gold rare that's the only other holo that's really ugly, so I wouldn't touch that. Most of those are coming in at only $1 or under. This might be a really niche card, but I think it's pretty funny if you are able to resolve it. It might be worth picking up and holding on to 1 or 2 of the original rare copies if you can find them. Speaking of counters to the Yummy deck, the next card we have is Dino Wrestler Pankratops. So this card's a fairly old one, but it's extremely powerful. I still remember thinking it was crazy that when this card first came out in the TCG, it was given to us as a common. So basically, it's a 2600 attack point body that you can special summon if your opponent controls more monsters than you. It has access to a quick effect where you contribute it to destroy any card that your opponent controls. Now this is actually a card that's been really popular in the side deck over in the OCG. The idea is that you can special summon this card and attack over Herold of the Arkite, then tribute it to pop a card afterwards. Now originally Pankratops was mostly outclassed by Kashtira Fenrir, but then Pankratops was limited, and also Pankratops is actually better against Herold because you don't need to try and get rid of something on attack declaration where Herold can negate it. With Pankratops, we are fortunate because it was a common, then a rare, and it also has some very cheap ultra rare printings, so just finding a copy of the card to use should actually be quite easy. However, the card does have a couple of nicer rarities. The collector's rares aren't anything too crazy, but the QCRs from last year's tins, those were only a couple of dollars back then. They've now shot way up to around $7 to $8 per copy. Nothing too insane, but quite a bit when you were guaranteed to pull 3 QCRs per tin. Its other nice printing that I really enjoy personally is the secret rare from one of the Battles of Legend sets. Those are around $3 to $5, and they're a really nice pickup if you don't like how shiny and loud the QCR printings are. Fortunately, regardless of whether you want to bling out your deck or play on a budget, Pankratops is definitely one of the more accessible cards in the game. So speaking of Herold of the Arkite, that's the next card I want to look at briefly. This card is actually a really strong extra deck option for the Yummy strategy. They don't usually climb too high in terms of synchro levels, so Arkite is one of the main boss monsters that they'll end on. This card is really strong as it banishes any monster sent from the hand or deck to the graveyard, and also you contribute it to negate a monster effect, spell, or trap. Now over in the OCG, Some Yummy builds do actually run 2 copies of this card because it is something that they'll make fairly consistently. And the Yummy cards themselves, I don't actually believe they have too many hard negates, so this is an option that allows them to try and turn off key cards during the opponent's turn. Now fortunately, Herold of the Arkite was reprinted in Rarity Collection 1, so finding the card should be pretty easy, and something like the Secret Rare actually does look really nice. However, it's the QCR printing that we're talking about here, as they were bought out over the last week or so. For the longest time, they were only at about $20, but they started climbing around 10 days ago, and they're now sitting between the $40 to $50 range. With this one, I don't know if Yummy decks here are going to play 1 or 2. In general, I don't really like Synchros in QCR because I think the colors look kind of off, but they are the highest rarity version of the card, so that's what players are going to want. If you guys did open Rarity Collection 1 and have some of the lower rarity printings of this card at home, definitely consider throwing a few copies into your trade binder. Rarity Collection 1 came out long enough ago that some players won't have the cards and they won't be in everyone's binders the same way that they were a year ago, so you should be able to turn those extra copies into some value with lower end trades. Up next, we have Secretary on Dragon. So this card is actually a brand new card, having just come out in Duelist Advance. The thing is, it's sort of out of place in that set, but it's extremely relevant with the upcoming release of Justice Hunters. This card requires a dragon and spellcaster as material, and while it's on the field, your opponent can't activate the effects of special summoned dragon or spellcaster monsters they control. It does have other effects, but that's the main thing you really want to use this card for, is to floodgate out the Draco Tail matchup. The thing is, in Draco Tail, you can just fuse for this using cards in your own deck, but the thing that some players are also doing is they're using Super Poly to access this card, breaking apart the opponent's Draco Tail board and limiting their ability to have follow-up plays. Now, Secretary on Dragon isn't a particularly expensive card yet. The Starlights have jumped in price recently. They were around $35 to $40, but they've just now jumped up to between the $70 and $75 mark a piece. The Ultras, on the other hand, actually remain relatively affordable, and they're still only $3 to $4 each. Looking forward though, I do think that Draco Tail is clearly behind all of the K9 variants and then Yummy in terms of power, so I don't actually expect Draco Tail to have the same representation at big events, so maybe this is a card that won't see too much play inside or extra decks quite yet. However, if we do see Draco Tail really start to perform well, or maybe in a few months after we see some hits to the other strategies on the ban list, if Draco Tail ever does start to pick up, Secretary on Dragon is a card that you will want to own a few copies of. At only $3 to $4 each, this card does have a ton of upward potential, so you definitely might want to consider grabbing a few copies while it's still so cheap. And finally, the last card I'll talk about for today is Garden Rose Maiden. So one of the themes getting support in Doom of Dimensions is the Rose theme. I don't know if that's exactly what the archetype's called, but it's cards like Black Rose Dragon, Rocks Rose Dragon, Black Garden. I don't know if the cards will actually become like a cohesive deck or if they'll just be used as an engine, but some of the cards are really cool. There's a new version of Black Rose Dragon that looks absolutely insane. Anyways, with the new support revealed, one card that has shot up in price is Garden Rose Maiden. This is sort of a combo piece that you make on the way to building up your board. Now on summon, it searches for a copy of Black Garden, the field spell, and then you can banish it from your graveyard to special summon a Rose Dragon or a Synchro Dragon monster from your graveyard. The thing with Garden Rose Maiden is that she's actually really hard to find here in the TCG. She was an ultra rare in one of the Duelist pack sets, and then a secret rare in one of the legendary Duelist box products as a promo, neither of which was very widely open sets. Because of that, she hardly has any listings on TCG Player at the moment. The original Ultras are coming in at $20, while the secret rares are at $25, even though either printing was only at about $5 each a couple of weeks ago. Now this one is kind of weird, especially since I don't think that the Rose Dragon cards are really going to be meta relevant. Of course, the format could change by then. The other interesting thing is that this card actually should be getting an alternate art printing in Doom of Dimensions itself, very similarly to how Gaga Girl got one in Duelist Advance, so that would be the highest rarity of the card. Even then, Garden Rose Maiden might be a difficult card for you guys to find, so add these to your trade binders if you happen to be sitting on some extra copies, but be wary of the card randomly getting reprinted if you're looking to pick some up for yourself. Alright guys, that is all I have for today's episode. These are just kind of like the bigger card price shifts and spikes that I've seen within the last few days that I really wanted to talk about. There are a bunch of other smaller things that I'm hopefully going to get to in an episode later on this week, because I do want to keep you guys informed of the big things, but the small things can also be really, really important. And that's where we make a bunch of money on, is when those cards that were unexpectedly 50 cents or $1 go up to $5, because that's like a 400% profit. Anyways, guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch episode, please make sure you let me know by hitting that thumbs up button. Make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.